School of our Divine Infinite Being, Central Doctrine. Preface and Appreciations. Our Central Doctrine is a work that was composed, written, rewritten, organized, reorganized, and finally put together in its final form over the course of 2 decades. What you will find here started out as a loose collection of essays written by myself, Eddie Paredes, the headmaster of the School of our Divine Infinite Being. These ideas were greatly enhanced and modified through the help of the Eastern scholar Suvra Ghatak, PhD and doctorate in philosophy and religion Timothy Desmond, and the inspiring artwork of our executive artist Raju Sarkar. A personal thanks to our entire team is in order, especially to our chief engineer Debashish Kaur and his talented staff of engineers. Without them, our online training portal and diviner business programs would have never happened. A special thanks as well to our media and design team, Nilanjan Sarkar, Saurav Kaur, Ridita Brada Mukherjee, and Somnath Sarkar for all their tireless work on all of our offered training and programs. And finally to Carl Jung, Wolfgang Pauli, Henry Stapp, Gregory Shaw, and the Neoplatonic father of Theurgy, Iamblichus. Although I have many teachers alive and dead, these 5 made the biggest impact on my way of thinking and the tenets and training of our school. Authorial and doctrinal clarification. This work, the central doctrine of the School of our Divine Infinite Being, represents a unified spiritual and philosophical system developed by the school itself, while it references, incorporates, and dialogues with the words of various historical figures, scientists, mystics, and philosophers. The ideas, interpretations, and doctrinal frameworks herein are not to be attributed to those quoted individuals or traditions. Rather, they are the original theological, cosmological, and metaphysical assertions of the School of our Divine Infinite Being, synthesized through its unique lens and sacred revelation. Quotations and citations are offered to illuminate context and draw resonant parallels, not to imply endorsement, agreement, or shared authorship. The reader is invited to approach this text not as a collage of borrowed thought, but as a living doctrine, emergent, revelatory, and guided by the infinite wellspring of consciousness that the school upholds as its source and center. Grand Introduction and Framework to the School of our Divine Infinite Being. The content of our central doctrine is the framework for the theurgic and religious practices of Perennial Mandalism and the inner Platonic mystery school of our Divine Infinite Being. The understanding of our ritual praxis, ontology, and beliefs requires a successive introduction to terminology and concepts, many being ancient and others modern in their explanation. You are welcome to read our literature in any order, but we highly recommend that you review it from start to finish if our approach to existence sparks an interest for you. If you are interested in knowing more about initiation and membership as a Perennial Mandalan, or in joining our mystery school as an aspirant and want more information on how to apply, please visit our website at www.divineinfinitebeing.com.
All things have been generated from one fire. Chaldean Oracles.
Our project is a modern spiritual technology built on the framework of the current and historical records of humankind's rebirth into the infinite within the ritual and philosophical practices of Theurgy. Invocation of our Divine Infinite Being. I am one, our Divine Infinite Being, identical as self and separated as divine throughout the cosmos. I pray, meditate, philosophize, and engage the theurgic ceremony of union. Father, source, singularity, center of gravity, center of consciousness, eternal and infinite, thee I invoke. Mother, source, spherical horizon, collective unconscious, womb of the cosmos, thee I invoke. Immortal parent sprung from one single unifying source, at once entangled, present in the child, the theurgist, I am that. Consciousness peering into the vastness, awake and alive, I am that. The collective infinite possibility surrounding me, rooted in the eternal spherical boundless one, I am that. My own boundary, spherical star vehicle, ceremonial lens reflecting the perfecting nature of the One. I am that. The greatest boundary, unified whole space-time geometry, absolutely coherent, perfect, eternal, whose grand history I enter into my future. Thee I invoke. Obscured within me and surrounding me, that I may make disciplined effort, the great work. Through vigilance I awaken to the eternal divine presence in every experience. I am one. Separated for chance of union, I worship you with endless devotion. Thou art my lover, my father, my mother, myself. I am one, our divine infinite being. Note to the aspirant.
Imagination is more important than knowledge, for knowledge is limited to all we know and understand, while imagination embraces the entire world and all there ever will be to know and understand. Albert Einstein, Cosmopolitan Interview.
In the art and science of Theurgy, the imagination is not just a place of fantasy and passing thoughts throughout the day. The imagination is an inroad to a realm that is very real and accessible objectively through purposeful acts, deep silence, and a higher level of attention. The mind within also surrounds us in the objective reality of experience. There is a mind in nature and a cosmic consciousness that we provide a comprehensive framework for understanding in this work. Our imaginations are a vehicle to the logos of the mind's existence. All things natural to the development of humankind over the course of millennia were due solely to this one realm of experience. Computers, smartphones, automobiles, buildings, airplanes, and all the advances in life had their birth in the imagination. Language itself and the very first written scriptures dating back thousands of years are a result of this same realm.
The psychic organ that received the divine light was the pneumatic or luminous body. In his treatise on dreams, Synesius identified this body with the imagination and described it as the soul's first vehicle. It was within this imaginal body that the soul experienced its most profound illuminations. The imaginal body, however, should not be confused with ordinary imagination. Iamblichus distinguished not only the God-sent dreams from the human but also the divine appearances, given by the gods from the images concocted by man. The former possessed transformative power while the latter were merely reflections of embodied life. Gregory Shaw, Theurgy and the Soul, the Neoplatonism of Iamblichus.
As Theurgists, we take this realm of experience as absolute within its own right and cultivate a true and identified relationship with its existence. The imagination is not only the seed of every idea and every thought, but also a world of forms, archetypes, and principles accessible to those who know its innermost secrets. It is this transformation that we are inviting the seeker to participate in through the tenets of our school, a transformation that merges the material world of experience with the immaterial mind of God, our divine infinite being.
There exists an agent which is natural and divine, material and spiritual, a universal plastic mediator, a common receptacle of the vibrations of motion and the images of forms, a fluid and a force, which may be called in some ways the imagination of nature. The existence of this force is the great arcanum of practical magic. Israel Regardie, The Tree of Life, a Study in Magic.
Theurgy is a visionary and a revelatory work of divine presence and alignment with the demiurgic creator of the cosmos. The demiurge is the creator god of Platonism, and we, at the level of the self, are also the creators of our own lives. We are a microcosm within the macrocosmic order of this cosmic creator, the demiurge being an eternal aspect of our divine infinite being, or as many call it, God. Through rites, meditation, sonorous invocations, and direct ritual experience, a theurgist aligns with and becomes an agent to cosmic forces within our divine infinite being. Ultimately, the theurgist, as a personal cosmos, comes into alignment with the greater cosmos and experiences spiritual growth, liberation, and direct awareness of their transcendent being. The experiences of life, as we move through this world of generative material existence, are one with the totality state of existence. We are a non-dual school and religious organization that does not separate the body of the world from the body of our infinite being. Throughout this work, we will impart knowledge and greatly encourage you to keep an open heart and mind. If you have found your way to our work, we honor your providence, as we are now of one fate, and hope to see you join us as a fellow keeper in the light of truth. Throughout this doctrine, we will be discussing many perspectives that, combined, give the aspirant a well-rounded view of our religious beliefs and our school's theurgic practices. These practices, from a modern-day lens, can be seen as the modern reprisal of the ancient school of Theurgic Platonism, rooted in the practices of Iamblichus, the head of the Platonic school in Syria during the 3rd century CE. More on his ritual praxis and theurgic principles to come. My name is Eddie Paredes, and I am the author of our central doctrine and the headmaster of our Platonic mystery school. To the aspirant, I am an echo from deep structures of reality, calling you towards an awakening of the highest kind. To the Hindu East, I am a bridge into the central global ethic born into all nations. To the seeker lost in the variations of the Western mystery traditions, I am a lamppost. To the lost Greek beginnings, I am Zeno, gift of Zeus. Among humankind, I am the servant of the Most High, here to share, as did my teachers, Krishna, Jesus, Iamblichus, Lao Tse, and countless others. To the Thelemic Magus, I am simply 7. Whichever door you enter, I am your guide into a realm full of gods, goddesses, eternal archetypes and forms, and a bridge to the infinite eternal selfhood on the royal road of religious and philosophical thought. Introduction to the basis of our mystery school model. Our school is an extension of the secret teachings of the ancient mystery schools of the Chaldeans, Egyptians, and the Greek philosophical movement beginning with Plato. We have many related practices for more recent mystery traditions as well, led by protagonists in the West such as Eliphas Levi, Samuel Little McGregor Mathers, Helena Blavatsky, Aleister Crowley, William Walker Atkinson, and Israel Regardie. And from the East we draw from teachers such as A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Osho Rajneesh, Ramakrishna, and Shambhavi Chopra. We have incorporated many pearls of wisdom from the 3 branches of Hinduism, namely Shaktism, Shaivism, and Vaishnava Vedantic practices. These include the Theurgy of the East through meditative practices in Tantric Kundalini Yoga. Within our school are certain elements of Hebrew Kabbalah and the earliest Merkava mysticism, found rooted in the lineage of the Dead Sea Scroll community of Qumran. Although we draw related context from the world of spiritual practices globally, our central model is framed on the earliest doctrines of transcendence within the mystery traditions of Iamblican Platonism, the mysticism of Thomasian Christianity, the teachings of Krishna consciousness, and the way of nature found in the philosophies of the Tao Te Ching. Beyond this, our practices are unique, incorporating heretofore unknown elements of esoteric science from groundbreaking modern approaches in psychology, philosophy, and physics, following the work started by the famous psychologist Carl Jung and the Nobel Prize-winning physicist Wolfgang Pauli. The work of Theurgy and the basis of our religious and philosophical practices are conditioned on 3 very important premises which otherwise render the practice pointless. First, what we actually are beyond this mortal coil of physical reality is eternal, immortal, indestructible, and death is an illusion. Second, this life of experience, where we are material and alive, is not separate from the infinite, but the very world of its spiritual expression, an existence we must awaken our divine intellect to realize. Third, the cosmos itself is sentient, alive, and imbued with the spiritual mind, an expression of the one total ontology state, our divine infinite being. Our universe, according to string theory, is an inside-out black hole singularity that is expanding faster than light. This expanding single reality we live within is conscious, and we are a reflected consciousness within it. With the advent of quantum mechanics through to the modern-day use of string theory, we have been given sacred keys to understanding our existence through a modern Platonic worldview. This was captured by the PhD scholar and our friend Timothy Desmond in the equation psyche equals singularity. We are one with and deeply identified with the sentient, expanding cosmos itself. Some of our biggest breakthroughs in the sciences now support this, as we will educate you throughout our work. Timothy also has an incredible class that speaks of our eternal natures, the hero's journey, and dives into the data on near-death experiences. We suggest our students take some time to explore his work at www.psycheandsingularity.com. We are a polytheistic school of modern-day theurgy, following the perennial philosophy and the absolute unity, the Platonic one.
From Plato, Iamblichus knew that the One can never be revealed in a singular form, but only under a multitude of veils. And so it was the practice of the wise to reveal their mysteries through veils and symbols. To privilege a single revelation would turn Platonic metaphysics upside down. The claim to possess the singular truth betrays the very principle of theurgy, understood as cosmogonic activity rooted in an ineffable source, expressed in multiple forms and in culturally distinct traditions. Polytheism is therefore intrinsic to theurgic Neoplatonism. Gregory Shaw, Hellenic Tantra.
Our school follows polytheistic monism as our spiritual teacher Iamblichus of the 3rd century and his fellow Neoplatonists did. Polytheistic monism is a framework in religious and philosophical thought that combines elements of both polytheism and monism. As Alfred North Whitehead, the famous American philosopher, stated, "We must embrace pluralism, respecting all strivings towards the infinite in a neutral, open framework." Polytheism is the belief in, allowance for, respect, or worship of multiple deities. Each deity may represent and embody different aspects of the divine realm, natural forces, and eternal principles of our human experiences. As polytheistic monists, we accept one totality state of existence, which expresses an eternal nature clearly found in the myriad strivings towards the infinite throughout the ages and within all civilizations. Whatever the filter of language and identification of the numerous gods and goddesses, and thereby archetypal forces, it is the very transcendent factor in nature that fills in the poetic, revelatory relationship of one to the cosmos. In our school, the various gods or goddesses are all different manifestations or aspects of a single underlying divine and infinite reality. All expressions of the deity have as their ultimate source a singular cosmic principle or being. Polytheistic monism can also be found in certain Hindu philosophies, such as Advaita Vedanta, where multiple deities are seen as manifestations of the one ultimate reality, Brahman. Shaktism, Shaivism, and Vaishnava Vedantic Hinduism all have this premise centrally as a predicate of ultimate truth. It can also be seen in certain forms of ancient Greek philosophy, where the various gods and goddesses were interpreted as symbols of different aspects of a single underlying being. The Platonists especially integrated this polytheistic perspective with their concept of the one true reality, from Plato through to every manifestation of their flourishing academies. This absolute unity is what Jung and Pauli called the unus mundus, or one world. We are a Platonic mystery school following these same principal ideas. In short, we acknowledge all deification of the eternal in its infinite polytheistic expression, and all at once recognize the monism centrally in union with our divine infinite being, the one true reality, the absolute. By the ritual art of theurgy, we unite our higher selves, seated with direct knowledge of our immortal natures, with the underlying single reality in a living and conscious cosmos. All believers in a higher power, whether that be God, gods, and goddesses, or other symbolic representations of a total living ontology, are of our kind. Whether that be the God of the Hebrew, the Tao of the Taoists, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead as Krishna in Gaudiya Vaishnava Hinduism, they are all of our kind, as we believe in a higher power and exist within a living cosmos as they do, in union with the divine source. The shamans invoking the Great Spirit of the Native Americans are just another expression of the exact same principles, as well as many other forms of folk religion and shamanism.
The perennial philosophy, also referred to as perennialism and perennial wisdom, is a perspective in philosophy and spirituality that views religious traditions as sharing a single, metaphysical truth or origin from which all esoteric and exoteric knowledge and doctrine has grown. Perennialism has its roots in the Renaissance interest in Neoplatonism and its idea of the One, from which all existence emerges. Wikipedia. The perennial philosophy is expressed most succinctly in the Sanskrit formula Tat Tavam Asi, that art thou. The Atman, or immanent eternal self, is one with Brahman, the absolute principle of all existence. and the last end of every human being is to discover the fact for himself, to find out who he really is. Aldous Huxley, The Perennial Philosophy. Iamblichus's impressive synthesis embraced, justified, and finally systematized whatever was known of humanity's past. All major theologies, whether Egyptian, Babylonian, or Greek, with their cultic customs, their mythologies, and their metaphysics, were explained as facets of the same grandiose revelation, a revelation which, unlike the Judeo-Christian revelation, is a continuing, unending one. Athanasiou Athanasiadi, professor of late antique and Byzantine history.
We are perennial philosophers and believe the very existence of humanity reaches in many forms and languages towards these universal truths. As we have stated and will continue to teach, there is a transcendent factor in nature that underlines all efforts and strivings towards this greater existence. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, this is referred to as the Absolute Truth. The philosopher Georg Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel, alive between 1770 and 1831 CE, also held this perspective when he referred to the Absolute Spirit. We see all religious strivings towards the eternal, infinite nature of existence as one and the same. For our school, this includes our modern-day sciences, especially in quantum biology, quantum mechanics, and string theory. You will learn much about this further through these writings. We strip the human political framework of warring factions and personal arrogance, seeing the one factor within all of these forms of expression. There is truly a Catholic or universal religion that has manifested under many different names in every culture and civilization throughout history. The written works of all religious epics have a more or less clear revelation of these realities in one form or another. These grand narratives, written all the way into antiquity, reveal the nature of these truths while grappling with the political agenda of their civilizations. The Bible, for example, is one replete with esoteric mystical knowledge, while at the same time politicized by Hebrew and Christian societies alike. You can see clearly every age weaving in their logic of control, reform, and personal interests as their authors balance between revelation and political management.
To be truly perennial is to accept that the absolute truth, the totality state of existence, our divine infinite being, is beyond written reference in its total nature. No earthly religious dogma is capable of capturing its most intimate dominion completely, but all turning towards the eternal is a finger pointing in the same direction. It is a human frailty to seek the absolutely correct in written works, no matter their source, when the world of forms, this physical experience, is but a realm of duality. This was something well understood in the bustling days of the Alexandrian library, where the greatest syncretism of religious practices in Western culture took place. When Rome converted to Christianity, religion became constricted and politically ambushed by the very wealthy and powerful from late 400 CE onwards. From that time arose the illusion of one religion being absolutely correct and all the others being either demonic or at least much inferior or less true. Although one form may be more salient and lucid than another, the very striving towards the infinite, immortal totality state of existence is just one language expressing itself in a variety of different formulas throughout the ages.
Myth is the secret opening through which the inexhaustible energies of the cosmos pour into human cultural manifestation. Joseph Campbell, The Inner Reaches of Outer Space. Metaphor as myth and as religion.
The artistic poetics of prophecy and divinatory experience intermixes with the cultural and linguistic elements of every civilization. The result is an alchemy of enigmatic peering into the infinite nature of existence, coupled by cultural narrative, story, and allegory. What we know as myth, story, and narrative, when garnered from the mastery of a concentrated mind turned towards eternal perspectives, are glimpses into the hidden world of the Absolute, at times full of divinatory power and prophecy, as we will show in these writings. We will demonstrate parallels between these visionary modes of receptivity and our most current cutting-edge sciences. Hidden behind the scriptural and philosophical mask of the infinite throughout human history is the inexhaustible inpouring of the eternal nature of being. This leads to relationship, and through this relationship to the deep knowledge of the divine presence every spiritual aspirant from every land and every time is seeking. All at once, God, as most call it, is as close as the thoughts running through one's mind, and, as we teach, is even the source of those thoughts. As shared between all of these spiritual strivings, turning towards that which is good and rich with virtue and the deepest love floods us from beyond through every possible opportunity. We filter the infinite through finite lenses of understanding, giving names and dividing the whole into parts, and therefore making a cult that which is not separate but only appearing so by our own ignorance. The ultimate underlying truth is that there are no parts, only the infinite whole, and we are expressions like ripples on a lake. Our human error is to proclaim the parts to be the whole and all other parts to be inferior or, in many cases, simply false. This human error of illusory separation causes nothing but suffering and miscalculation. This perspective has, as its foundation, and a poisonous one you will find it at even the loftiest of spiritual tables, a false identity of ownership. We are right, you are wrong, or we are right and so are you, but you are not completely right like us, or you are so wrong that only the gates of hell await you, etc. All of these unbalanced ways to view the absolute spirit in nature, as it is evidenced throughout cultures and over time, are human miscalculations of ownership. Ownership is a political ideology and is counter to the freedom experience between the infinite nature itself and the individual. A Catholic deep in prayer, speaking to Christ, is plugged into the very same truth as the Hindu deep in trance, singing the name of Krishna and dancing in the streets of Kolkata. You can reach the highest spiritual potential offered in this life as a Christian, Hindu, Mormon, Sufi, shaman, and as taught in Vaishnava Vedanta, even more or less as an atheist through the several schools of Buddhism. We have no interest in human political separation, and although atheism in its modern sensibility is rejected by our school, all strivings towards the infinite nature of the cosmos are simply one striving. There is only one hierarchy embedded in the universe, which we feel is most naturally described as the absolute truth, the absolute spirit, our divine infinite being. This is Vishnu, Shiva, Krishna, Shakti, Yahweh, Allah, the Platonic One, Hermes, Apollo, the Great Spirit, and the list goes on, far into antiquity, well beyond our written history. This quarrel is simply human arrogance and the impulse and drive to ownership. Truly, as Friedrich Nietzsche would call it, the will to power, and not the surrender of a true devotional mind. Human need for authority is a political, temporal, and limited dimension that has no place within the absolute spirit of our divine infinite being. Every work, modern and ancient, when filtered through cultural conditioning and political agenda, is filled with the idea of ownership. So much so in the East that many lines of Hindu schools give their lineage to human beings claiming to be the very avatar of God, just to show through the way they lived that they were all very human indeed. When you can build this filter, where you ignore the grand proclamations of ownership and seek only the true gems of eternal knowledge in between human error, all religions and all peoples worship the same infinite equally. Man is silly to think in any other dimension. The labels of religious isms, altogether in their highest good, are so closely related that whether you are Christian, Muslim, or Jew, when one speaks of the Holy Spirit, what is referenced is immediately understood. Whether labeled as such, they all believe in the divinatory power and guidance of an omnipresent Creator. We are quite satisfied to worship with the Mormon, Catholic, Hindu, Baha'i, Muslim, witch, Druid, shaman, or any other consummation of the Spirit. This we do openly and without reserve and without the necessity of hierarchy or form. As for our school, we are quite satisfied with the labels of Platonic Theurgist, Magus, Mystic Christian, Yogi, and even for some, White Witch. As a general label, you may call us Mandalan, as our faith encompassing our practices is called Perennial Mandalism. As you will learn, the mandala is the self-God archetype, and throughout these writings, this statement of unity is the reconciliation of all existing paradoxes into one ontological monism or singularity, spread out upon the earth, encompassing all of human strivings for the eternal. As put by my friend and teacher Timothy Desmond, it can be expressed in a single simple formula: psyche equals singularity. More on that to come. The thelemic philosophical framework has many similarities, and in the mystical and magical system of the AA by James Eshelman, he quotes Swami Vivekananda, a devotee of Ramakrishna, in his introduction.
If there is ever to be a universal religion, it must be one which will have no location in place or time, which will be infinite, like the God it will preach, and whose sun will shine upon the followers of Krishna and of Christ, on saint and sinners alike, which will not be Brahmanical or Buddhist, Christian or Mohammedan, but the sum total of all these, and still have infinite space for development, which in its Catholicity will embrace in its infinite arms and find a place for every human being, from the lowest groveling savage, not far removed from the brute, to the highest man, towering by the virtues of his head and heart almost above humanity, making society stand in awe of him and doubt his human nature. It will be a religion which will have no place for persecution or intolerance in its polity, which will recognize the divinity in every man and woman, and whose whole scope, whose whole force, will be centered in aiding humanity to realize its own true divine nature. Swami Vivekananda. Speech at the World's Parliament of Religions. Science and religion must always have something to do with one another. Wolfgang Pauli, letter Marcus Fertz. Here we are approaching the central areas of Pauli's philosophical thought. On the one hand, the matter involves forming a conception of reality on a scientific basis, on the other, a God image. According to Pauli, these have a close mutual connection, and for that reason must always have something to do with one another. K.V. Lorikainen, Beyond the Atom.
Even the most current sciences do not stand in opposition to this transcendent factor in nature, as many atheist thinkers may suppose. In fact, they stand as the greatest revelation of our time, bringing a sense of accuracy and evidence that is irrefutable. One of the life missions of our school is to help bridge this gap for humanity. Throughout our doctrine is a journey through many of the most significant breakthroughs of the past century and what they mean for the practicing Theurgist and those who take on the mantle of our perennial Mandalan faith. Unlike ever before, we can stand on solid ground through scientific language, revealing these age-old principles to have a foundation that is both modern and undeniable.
Pauli considered this sharp distinction between the spheres of faith and knowledge to be a great danger for Western culture. He emphasized in many different connections that the origins of religion and science are the same, and that they cannot be separated from one another, as has indeed occurred in Western countries in modern times. Pauli expressed the hope that we should be able to return to the attitude of the alchemists, in a new form of course, by creating a set of concepts and new expressions, which at the same time describe both the physical, external world and the psychic, internal world. K.V. Lorikainen, Beyond the Atom.
Wolfgang Pauli, the Nobel Prize-winning quantum physicist, found this to be one of the most important initiatives of our times. The ideas and concepts of Wolfgang Pauli hold great significance for the further development of our central doctrine in the interface of religion, theurgy, and science. Like him, we hold a vision of a total ontology where science no longer berates the spiritual, and religious thought finds its home among the advanced modern methods of inquiry. The framework of practice in our school. In the final design and vision of our school, we offer an alternative path to spirituality for individuals, groups, and especially families. Our school offers programs for younger individuals starting at the age of 10. Currently, the adult programs are offered, and over time, we will be completing our 10+ and teenage programs. Our membership comes with different levels of involvement, from simple membership participation as a perennial Mandalan, to certification in divination, to fully committed mystery school advancements. The information presented in our central doctrine is considered the basis of our advanced work for those interested in the deeper aspects of our teachings. Following the framework of the Western mystery traditions with careful integration of Eastern Hindu practices, our school is a bridge between East and West. Advancement in the school of our Divine Infinite Being can be accessed through simple participation, study, prayer, meditation practices, and theurgic ritual performance. For families, we offer lightweight courses and live teachings to help create the atmosphere necessary for maintaining a spiritual household. For those wanting to advance into the inner disciplines of the Mystery School, we offer a 15-month program in theurgic advancement with secret trainings and teachings not available in our public work. Those that complete the Mystery School requirements are initiated as priests and priestesses of our order. Our discipline frames all forms of liberation in every religion: yoga, prayer, meditation, esoteric tradition, Platonic-based philosophy and ceremonial ritual practices, as its principles are universal. We believe and bring students to the knowledge of one's ability to commune with the totality state of existence, our divine infinite being, becoming an agent of the divine in the world. As theurgists and polytheistic monists, we approach the absolute, as the philosopher Hegel would have it, as the spirit that permeates all strivings towards the eternal, moving through all languages, cultures, and civilizations over time. The absolute spirit, this transcendent factor in nature, draws us towards an infinite, eternal, experienceable state of union with the divine. Theurgy is the direct ceremonial ritual process to the unfolding of this state of knowing, transforming the world of experience into the infinite potential and purpose as a disciple of the Most High. In our methods, the student opens themselves to the cosmic spherical mandala, the God archetype, the experience of wholeness, and the development of synchronicity awareness in their lives. This starts with jnana, the yoga of knowledge, building on scientific discoveries, philosophical insight, the poetics of prophecy, and study of transcendent symbolic language. Timothy Desmond says of jnana yoga, "It is like the hatha yoga you see in the gyms all over the country, where they are bending themselves into shapes. Jnana yoga is the bending of one's mind into shapes that, when held for a significant amount of time, releases knowledge." Jnana then leads to raha, the yoga of focused action through meditation practices and ceremonial ritual performance. And finally, bhakti, the yoga of dedicated service leading to God realization and divine union with the supreme ultimate reality. The Vedanta philosophers call this Purusha Atman, the Platonist the One, in our school, our divine infinite being. One of the unique aspects of our mystery school, and a very important fact, is our commitment to modern science and the current arguments concerning the ontology of existence. We draw from many modern scientific disciplines and current fields of psychology, allowing us to give more clear definition and rigor to our methods. These include Jungian psychology, transpersonal psychology, quantum mechanics, relativity theory, quantum biology, and string theory. As a school, we feel that these disciplines have come full circle, pointing in the direction of the absolute unity, our divine infinite being. A large part of the mission of our school is to continue this moving forward as the sciences and technologies of our age continue to advance. We now welcome you to an adventure through the mind-matter paradox and an education in the more recent history of ideas. Throughout, we will be speaking about quantum mechanics, string theory, and different perspectives in the transpersonal and depth fields of psychology. While doing this, we give examples in everyday living and point out parallels to theurgic, philosophical, and religious practices. This takes focused attention from the seeker, and we suggest reading through our central doctrine as many times as necessary to capture its most salient points. By mastering these concepts, you gain the key which unlocks the rest of the teachings of our school and the framework of the Perennial Mandalism faith. Whether we are speaking about divination, astrology, theurgy, yoga, meditation, or tarot, the underpinning science of our school's mystery practices find their foundations in this adventure you are now on. The 20th century shifted into a scientific revolution that started with the advent of quantum mechanics and modern depth psychology. In the midst of this revolution, two academics and masters in their field met and developed a lifelong friendship that would lead to incredible conclusions. Carl Jung and Wolfgang Pauli. Carl Jung, Wolfgang Pauli, and the Jung-Pauli conjecture. If you have heard of introverts or extroverts, you are familiar with the rule of psychology, first developed by Carl Jung. Jung was a contemporary of Sigmund Freud and one of the founders of depth and analytical psychology. As a psychologist and psychiatric doctor, he managed 236 complex clinical cases and consulted thousands of clients in his private practice. He was one of the most sought-after psychologists in the world at the time and was given a full documentary on BBC television in the UK in his later career. Near the end of his life, well in his 80s, he was still seeing patients and it would take months to get an appointment. Jung's library of writings is one of the largest on the subject of psychology, with his collected works alone being 10,910 pages. My staff has created a video library on our website and YouTube where we resurrect Jung to debate contemporary atheists in a creative work, worth the entertainment and a fun way to learn a lot more about the way he thinks. Pauli was awarded the Lorenz Medal in 1930 by the Royal Netherlands Academy of Arts and Sciences for the discovery of the neutrino. In 1945, after being nominated by Albert Einstein, Pauli received the Nobel Prize in Physics for the discovery of the exclusion principle. This allowed our astronomers to understand the chemistry of stars and galaxies and led to incredible breakthroughs in quantum cosmology. Pauli was the most respected quantum physicist of his time, with many Nobel Prize-winning physicists sending their papers to him for review. Even Albert Einstein stated that Pauli was to be his predecessor. Pauli wrote the section on relativity for Einstein that appeared in the World Encyclopedia. Jung and Pauli worked in the respective fields of psychology and quantum physics, employing brilliant careers while collaborating for more than 2 decades on the parallels between psychology and quantum physics. The work of Jung and Pauli highlights the potential for interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary collaborations between psychology and quantum physics at a level never before witnessed. They were pioneers whose work still maintains high interest in colleges, universities, and postgraduate research groups across the world. Today, there are approximately 2,500 Jungian psychologists, and Pauli's work remains foundational to our modern understanding of quantum mechanics, chemistry, and cosmology. Their relationship began when Pauli sought the counsel of the then famous and older Carl Jung. He was in his 30s and experiencing intense and sometimes disturbing dreams, magnified by the conditions of a troubled life. Jung jumped at the opportunity to work with Pauli, knowing his reputation. Because he wanted to engage with Pauli on a more academic level, he turned Pauli over to Marie-Louise von Franz, his pupil, for personal therapy. Marie had an incredible talent for analyzing dreams and, in her long career, was said to have interpreted over 65,000 of them for her patients. This meeting started a lifetime relationship that was still active when Pauli died in 1958. On his deathbed, Pauli's very last request was to speak with Carl Jung, his lifelong friend.
The mere apprehension of the dream has already, so to speak, altered the state of the unconscious, and thereby, in analogy with a measurement in quantum physics, created a new phenomenon. Wolfgang Pauli, The Interpretation of Nature and the Psyche.
Jung quickly discovered that Pauli had an encyclopedia-like memory concerning his dreams and gained a personal interest in their interpretation. Pauli tended towards intense mystical dreams which deeply influenced Jung's psychological theories, and they would write letters to each other often over their interpretation. Their correspondence was well documented in the book Atom and Archetype, edited by C.A. Meyer. Jung compiled roughly 1,300 of Pauli's dreams and made wide use of them for his research studies. Throughout their relationship, a passion was building up. An adventure into exploration of a hidden realm of reality was opening before them like the sun dawning on a distant horizon. To their astonishment, they discovered that the laws of psychology and physics mirror and perfectly correlate with each other. These parallels led to a passionate obsession to further investigate these findings for over 2 decades to follow. Wolfgang Pauli was the first to postulate that consciousness, the observer in quantum mechanics, must play a role in quantum measurement. This was adapted by most of the founders of quantum theory and remains central to the biggest questions in quantum mechanics today. Pauli had a deep interest in the history of ideas. He was fluent in Latin and Greek, often reading philosophical and classical literature in their original language. Jung was already widely known for his religious and philosophical writings. They both had a deep interest in Platonism, Eastern religions, alchemy, and Western philosophy in general. Pauli published with Jung concerning the significant parallels between psychology and quantum mechanics, leading to the development of the Jung-Pauli conjecture, and their collaboration on the book The Interpretation of Nature and the Psyche, detailing the influence of archetype ideas on the scientific theories of Kepler.
My personal opinion is that in the future science reality will be neither mental or physical, but somehow both. Today both microphysics and the psychology of the unconscious deal with an invisible reality, or posit such a reality as philosophers would say. As a consequence, one has to be prepared, old Bohr style, to find properties different from those in the macro world. Wolfgang Pauli, Letter to Marcus Fiers. The concept of the Unus Mundus provides an ontological level of description without any split of mental and material domains, which is more fundamental than the descriptive level with split domains. One can address the transition from the fundamental level to that with mind and matter separated in terms of emergence, if one thinks of it as an emergence of the distinction of mind and matter, rather than the emergence of mind from matter. But since matter has now turned into an abstract, invisible reality for the modern physicist, the prospects for a psychophysical monism have become much more auspicious. Wolfgang Pauli, Atom and Archetype. The Pauli, Jung Letters.
The Jung-Pauli conjecture states that mind and matter are two separate realities in experience, but emerge from a common immeasurable source as entangled poles of one total experience. Jung termed this immeasurable unified single reality the unus mundus. It is often referred to by many Jungians as the numinous, and quite perfectly fits the Hindu Brahman and the Tao of Taoism. The Jung-Pauli conjecture is a unique branch of the philosophy of double-aspect monism, and states that the laws of psychology, psyche, and the laws of physics, matter, mirror and correlate with each other following a deeper fundamental law. In their conclusions, the physical world and consciousness or psyche are equally mirrored and tangled double aspects of one ontological whole or monism, where they found their deepest correlations in the observer role in physics, the psyche and depth psychology, and more generally throughout Eastern philosophy, Western philosophy, and religious studies.
The zero-energy universe hypothesis proposes that the total amount of energy in the universe is exactly zero. Its amount of positive energy in the form of matter is exactly cancelled out by its negative energy in the form of gravity. Wikipedia.
The immaterial psyche and the physical world of form do find themselves balanced perfectly, as the Jung-Pauli conjecture professes, if there is one modern philosophical and quantum assumption added: consciousness is equal to gravity. Something being explored by our top minds in the realm of quantum consciousness theory. In the physical world, the total amount of energy in the form of matter is exactly cancelled out by an equal amount of gravitational force. They are balanced at exactly zero. In the gravitational singularity, that is, our inside-out black hole universe has infinite mass and infinite gravitational acceleration. This will bring us to our equation psyche equals singularity in chapters to come. There is a lot to unpack before we get to these realities, but this is where we are headed. Hold on to your hat. The monad, dyad, opposition in all things, the ultimate reconciliation of direct experience, the Tao.
The monad is the principle of all things. It maintains the same condition throughout its existence. It is stable and unchangeable. The monad, since it is the origin of all things and contains all things potentially within itself, is especially connected with the divine and the good. The monad, being the beginning and seed of numbers and so of everything, is seen as containing all things within itself, potentially. The dyad is the principle of difference and division. It is the first to depart from the simplicity of the monad and thus creates multiplicity. The dyad, as the source of division and change, is associated with multiplicity and the dynamic processes of the cosmos. Through the dyad, we perceive otherness and distinction, as it is the principle that stands opposite to the oneness of the monad. The Pythagoreans taught that the cosmos is governed by two principles, the limited and the unlimited. The limited imposes form and boundary, while the unlimited provides the potential for all things. All things arise from the mixture of the limited and the unlimited. The cosmos itself is a harmonious arrangement, where the unlimited is bound and shaped by the limited. Iamblichus, on the Pythagorean life. Consequently, Iamblichus came to the conclusion that all things partake in opposition, a phenomenon most conspicuous in the sublunary world. Thus, it appears that Iamblichus's goal in introducing the limit-unlimited pair was to account for the genesis of multiplicity and alterity, with limit providing definition and intelligibility, while the unlimited enables infinite flux and iteration within all individual items partaking of the same form. On Iamblichus, Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy.
In Platonism, opposition is the key predicate of their philosophical system, originating in the contemplation of the monad and the dyad of Pythagorean thought. The unlimited is devoid of parts, infinite in nature, and is altogether an absolute unity, equal to the number one. This is the unlimited eternal ground state of being, the eternal one of Platonism. The dyad is the limiting of the unlimited, creating a duality, represented by the number 2. The limited produces all the multivariate forms of the physical world and the expressions of the human condition, which we will show in following chapters. This is relative to the Jungian archetypes and Platonic forms. The limited, in its totality, objectively, is not separate from the monad or unlimited. The limited produces an infinite variety of expression, and in its own way remains unlimited in its total objective nature. When you see the limited objectively in its infinite manifestations, it is to the total unity and inseparable from the one. In this paradox of unlimited unity and the limited total variety, all manifest forms, especially the human form, partake of the one. Each of us shapes our unique destiny through limiting, specializing, and then concretizing the manifest nature of the one into form. Iamblichus states, the limited imposes form and boundary, while the unlimited provides the potential for all things. The unlimited itself is the potential for form. It is what draws form into existence through driving multiplicity back to unity. As we manifest our purpose and meaning in our lives, we are driven by a teleology drawing unity out of multiplicity. It is the unlimited unity that drives us towards these ends, or as many would have it, God, the totality state of existence, our divine infinite being. We explain this in many different ways throughout this work.
For it must needs be that there is an opposition in all things. If not so, my firstborn in the wilderness, righteousness could not be brought to pass, neither wickedness, neither holiness, nor misery, neither good nor bad. Wherefore all things must needs to be a compound in one. 2 Nephi 2:10. Everything is dual, everything has poles, everything has its pair of opposites. Like and unlike are the same, opposites are identical in nature. William Walker Atkinson, The Kabbalion. I form the light and create darkness, I bring prosperity and create disaster, I the Lord do all these things. Isaiah 45:7. The self is made manifest in the opposites and in the conflicts between them. It is a coincidentia oppositorum, hence the need for a long initiation and deep experience in order to catch a glimpse of this unity. Carl Jung, Mysterium Conjunctionis. The greater the tension, the greater is the potential. Great energy springs from a correspondingly great tension of opposites. Carl Jung, Alchemy and Psychology.
Opposition was the key model for Jung and Pauli concerning the two poles of the conscious and unconscious mind. Jung considered a reconciliation of opposites towards wholeness as the central goal throughout the analytical method in his practice. The greater the tension, the greater the potential. This is obvious when you look into the ambitions of our greatest thinkers from every civilization and age. The greater the purpose, the higher the mark, the greater the tension between the individual and their strivings towards meaning. No matter the spiritual beliefs of humankind, this search for and identification of an aim in life towards a meaningful existence is inescapable. The greatest of these tensions have always taken the form of religious endeavor, striving towards knowledge of one's place in the cosmos.
In the ordinary affairs of life, one must see every event as a dealing with God and his soul. This implies a continuous awareness and a practice of seeing the divine in every moment. Aleister Crowley, The Law is for All.
A theurgist strives towards the will of the gods, the infinite nature of the unlimited, drawing the eternal nature of the one truth through the multiplicity of form in all their endeavors. Theurgy is the art of drawing the presence of the Eternal One into the world, and it is the one true reality that beckons us towards this end. As stated by Jung, hence the need for a long initiation and deep experience in order to catch a glimpse of this unity. A theurgist submits their will to the will of the cosmos, becoming a servant of the Most High. In our school and through our Perennial Mandalism faith, we offer initiation by fire and baptism by water as a symbolic representation of personal acceptance to live with and recognize the eternal in all our endeavors. In reality, initiation is a continual process that beckons the soul into deeper and deeper relationships with the totality state of existence, our divine infinite being. We call this the Great Work, as defined in the Western mystery traditions throughout their most recent history. The greatest tension and grandest of oppositions is the finite experience of the self, reconciled to the infinite nature of the eternal ground state of being. All of life is a multiplicity born of unity and a returning to the one true reality from one experience to the next. Throughout our central doctrine, you will be introduced to grand opposites in nature through the eyes of psychology, quantum mechanics, and string theory. From the virtual particle-antiparticle pairs in the quantum vacuum to action pair potentials that exist at every point in space-time, you will learn about the wave-particle duality and the spherical opposition of black holes with their singularity in the center at one pole and their spherical event horizons surrounding it at the other in the greater cosmos. We will delve into the mysterious inner-world opposites of the conscious and collective unconscious mind.
The tendency towards opposition is ever present. Opposition is the source of all growth, and the principle of opposition is the source of all opposites. Lao Tse, Tao Te Ching.
Taoism, the ancient Chinese-born religion of nature, follows the same framework holistically as the Jung-Pauli conjecture. This states that there is a ground state of existence that is an absolute unity. This can only be expressed and experienced as a balance of opposing or complementary forces in cooperation or discord. These opposites, in their totality, are absolute wholes through their natural relationship with each other. Taoism, being a philosophy of nature in its flexibility, finds likeness in most of the world's religions. It was deeply integrated with Buddhism in the form of Zen Buddhism of the East. Within their symbolism, they have the Tinitu, or the yin-yang symbol, representing the reconciliation of opposites. The concept of yin and yang date back to ancient Chinese texts long before the creation of the Theurgy symbol. They were first mentioned in the I Ching, Book of Changes, a classical text of divination dating back to around the 9th century BCE, during the Western Zhou dynasty. The earliest visual depictions resembling the yin-yang symbol emerged during the Han dynasty, between 206 BCE and 220 CE. The specific form of the Theurgy symbol, commonly recognized today with the swirling black and white halves, was developed later. This more familiar version is often attributed to the Song dynasty between 960 and 1279 CE, and the philosopher Zhao Yinyu. Yin is traditionally associated with darkness, passivity, and the feminine, while yang is linked with light, activity, and the masculine. Within the black swirl is a small white circle that represents the flow of the masculine back to the feminine. And within the white swirl is a small black circle that represents the flow of the feminine back to the masculine. This Taoist symbolic representation, altogether, is a unity, the Tao, which they relate to the supreme ultimate reality. Quite interestingly, scientists have used a newly discovered technique to visualize two entangled light particles in real time called biophoton digital holography. What they show at the time of entanglement are two photons taking the exact shape of the yin-yang symbol. These researchers published their findings on August 14, 2023, in the journal Nature Photonics. It is noteworthy that this most ancient symbol, derived from the natural philosophy of Taoist thought, is reflected in the very bonding of two into one at the quantum scale of entanglement.
All things are in flux. The flux is subject to a unifying measure or rational principle. This principle, Logos, the hidden harmony behind all change, bound opposites together in a unified tension, which is like that of a lyre, where a stable harmonious sound emerges from the tension of the opposing forces that arise from the bow bound together by the string. Opposition brings concord, out of discord comes the fairest harmony. Herculetus, Greek philosopher 5th century BCE.
Dialectic monism was naturally evidenced in the Mediterranean during the pre-Socratic era, during an increasing interest in philosophy among the Greeks. This was the foundation of Herculetus's pre-Socratic philosophy, which greatly influenced the early Greek Orphic liturgy, finding its way into the works of Pythagoras, Plato, the Stoics, and later Neoplatonic theurgists. Lao Tse, the protagonist of Taoism, and Herculetus lived in the same time period, around the 5th century BCE. Double aspect monism and the Jung-Pauli conjecture, as a division thereof, should be seen as a specialized model of current mind-body theory that fits perfectly within dialectic monism and thereby Taoism. All of life is a single unity expressed in the appearance of opposites. Life is relational, and this relationship in its essence is absolute unity. The Taoists call this the supreme ultimate reality, or more formally Tao. In Vedanta traditions, this is known as Brahman, and in the Jung-Pauli conjecture it is referred to as the unus mundus.